Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 32 for Monday, October 6th. My name is Farbod Merkazi. He is Jace Hatfield. If anyone ever tells you that a college football week isn't fun, the slate's not great, it's looking boring, just slap him in the face. Because something crazy is going to happen. I don't condone violence, but in this regard, I do. Because something crazy is bound to happen in these type of games, in these type of weeks. I mean, we're going to get into our first game, but Jace, if I gave you $10 to bet on any game that would be our leading topic on our recap show, would you have placed any money on this game, on our first game?
I would love to act like I knew ball well enough to say yes, but no shot. This game wasn't even on the radar for me for the day.
Right. I mean, we'll get into it, but now Penn State's 0-5 against the spread. They're 3-2 on the year, 0-2 in the Big Ten. They just lost to UCLA. There's a lot to talk about before we get into it. Make sure. Yeah, no, we're gonna be on here for a while about Penn State. I didn't think we were gonna be talking about Penn State. That's the thing. Like, we didn't break them down. We didn't break down this game. Last time we talked about them was the recap show of their Oregon game. And we thought, okay, they're going to go beat UCLA, get right, because they were going to go and beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. And then we'll have to see how they do against Indiana and Ohio State. We never talked about UCLA. But 1 second, got to do the plugs. Make sure you're following us on socials as Twitter at F for Discussion, TikTok at Flag, the number 4 Discussion. We're on YouTube at Flag for Discussion, and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Flag for Discussion. I have a feeling those social channels are going to be popping off this week. It's just a week. I don't have the words to describe how crazy yesterday felt for me. But we'll start out in Pasadena, where UCLA defeated number 7 Penn State 42-37. Mind you, this is can I give you the list, Jace, real quick, of the last top 10 teams that were upset by an opponent that was 0-4 or worse?
Please do.
It was number 7 Penn State against UCLA 2025. And then we kind of have to shift back to 1985. Number 7 BYU lost to UTEP. Before that, 1958, number 6 Navy lost to Tulane. Number 2 Michigan State in 1953 lost to Purdue. Number 3 Fordham in 1941 lost to Pitt. So it was an unprecedented loss. This is the first time a top 10 team has lost to an 0-4 opponent or worse since 1985. At this point, we gotta give Nico and UCLA their flowers because they had to go and win the game, but we'll do that towards the end. I mean, if you're Penn State, what happened?
I don't want this to sound like an Oregon bias thing, but I do think there's some truth in Oregon broke them. Now, we'll break that down to actually mean something more than just broke them. I think when you prepare so heavily into beating a specific team, James Franklin, everyone in the media, every fan, James Franklin, their fans, I'm sure their players even felt to some degree, we need to all the haters that say James Franklin can't win a big game, Penn State chokes in big games. I know that they hear that noise. I know that they know that noise is in the world. Whether they buy into it or not is a different story. But I think they put everything in to try to silence that noise, to go prove everybody wrong and beat Oregon. And when you lose a game like that in overtime, the way they lost with a pick, and they didn't look great in the grand scheme of that game, I think there's a little bit of buy-in, unfortunately, from the players, from the coaching staff of, man, we really can't win big games, or man, our head coach can't win big games. And I think once you start to have that locker room division where your players maybe don't trust your coach, your other coaches don't necessarily trust your head coach, and once there's like disarray among how people view the trajectory of your program and where your head coach is at, it gets hard to play winning football. Your focus no longer shifts from executing play to play. It's focused on what people are saying in the media, what you need to do about next steps. Man, is this guy going to get fired? If so, where am I going to go? Who has spots open for me? You start thinking about things that are not executing play by play. You start letting like some doubt creep into you. You maybe don't do that extra rep in the weight room because you're not bought in as much as you used to be. Maybe you don't watch that extra hour of film that you might have when you're as bought in. And that stacks up when you have 100 players with that mentality. That stacks up over time. I think that's a huge part of it. I also think post that loss, I'm sure they spent a lot of time talking about the loss, and then they probably jumped ahead and said, okay, well, the season's not dead. We just need to focus on beating one of Ohio State or Indiana, if not both. And they probably just completely overlooked the stretch of UCLA, Northwestern, and Iowa, and they just got totally proven wrong. And I'll give Penn State a little bit of a break here, and UCLA some credit. When you have an entire coaching, you have new coordinators, new head coach, and you're just going with something entirely new, it is hard to prepare for that. You have no idea what kind of offense they're going to call or what kind of defense. Sometimes that causes the team to play with a little bit more fire than they're used to, and it makes their old tape irrelevant. So I'll give UCLA some credit. They had a great brand new game plan they came out with. Penn State didn't have much to go off of. Even if you had played UCLA really well based on their first 4 weeks, you got a completely different UCLA team this week. So I'll give some credit there. But I think it's a combination of players not bought in, coaches not bought in, focus not on this game, but on the future and what that means. I just think they were not locked in.
I think a lot of it, I agree with you. I want to start offensively because the defense is its own bag of worms. It looks like something's caught up in their system. You and I talked about it last week, is one of the biggest issues with how we perceive Drew Aller and the Penn State offense, Andy Kotelnicki, their OC, is that going into the Oregon game, the first 3 games of the year where they played nobody, they didn't really ask him to do much. They didn't ask him to make things harder on him because they were like, we're going to go win games, those games regardless. We don't need him to put on the Superman cape. Sure, that's fine if you have an NFL known commodity and you've brought back this quarterback for the last 6 years. You know who he is. You know he's going to show up. When you're coaching a college quarterback, you're going to have to put him in situations that even if the situation doesn't exist, you're going to have to create those situations. And it felt like that's one of the reasons he struggles in big games against Oregon or last year in the playoff and whatnot. And we said that's one of the reasons the Penn State offense seems broken in big games. It feels shattered right now because it feels like they went into this week saying, all right, something's not working. Let's find a happy medium. That happy medium makes it look like Drew Aller, every time he's dropping back, he's thinking too much. It feels like either Andy Kotelnicki is calling something too safe and UCLA was able to snuff it out, or Drew Aller was thinking so much that the play never got started. Play couldn't even get started. Like Penn State's best offense this week came when Drew Aller decided to start. They started calling QB draws, and Drew Aller gained a lot of yards running up the middle. It was, oh yeah, let's use our quarterback and do what we need to do with him. But that's a quarterback that is given one read and told just sprint up the middle, avoid the defenders, is not drop back, go through your reads and make the right play. Drew Aller's not an RPO quarterback in general, so that is one of the reasons they're struggling. But for me, when I'm watching that offense, it feels like there's some something wrong within the process that's slowing everybody down. And when you're letting a UCLA defense that was blown out 35-10 against New Mexico, I understand it's a different. They have interim staffs now. I understand that, but this team was blown out by New Mexico. They lost to UNLV. They lost to bad football teams, and then they put up a good fight against Northwestern last week, but lost. You're telling me that defense is all of a sudden playing like 2021 Georgia? They were tackles for loss. Like everything that UCLA was sniffing out, like every play that Penn State had, it felt like UCLA knew. UCLA prepared for that game, but at the same time, it was like, you're right. Jerry Neuheisel was inserted as OC like 2 days before, so it's hard to prepare for that as Jim Knowles. But you still have the players, you still have the coaching staff, you still have a program that's looking to win a national title. This is the best Penn State has been under James Franklin. We say that time and time again, roster-wise. They went out and paid for Jim Knowles to come and made him the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football history. and this is what we get. It just there's no reason UCLA has to have more total yards. They had almost 20 minutes more of total time of possession.
Yeah, and they
There's just
ran for
no reason for that.
270 yards. I agree with you. And I think Jim Knowles, if I'm playing a brand new offensive coordinator against a UCLA team that's 0-4 but has a really good dual threat quarterback, I would think that my game plan going into playing an 0-4 team where I have the talent and athleticism and size advantage would be I'm going to stack the box with 7-8 guys every single play. And if Nico with his arm can, because Penn State loves to talk about how good their secondary is. AJ Harris, they like to talk about, could be a first round pick when he ends up going to the draft, when that is. Why not just make them be? If Nico's going to go 25 of 28 for 330 yards and 5 touchdowns in the air, so be it. If the UCLA's wide receivers are going to burn your supposed to be star corners, so be it. You can suffer a loss that way. But why would you ever let them run for 270 yards against you? Think the one game plan, I don't know if they're going to run. Let me just get to the quarterback. This is a team they're not as big as us. They're not as physical as us. They're not as strong as us. They're not as athletic, not as talented. Let me just get to Nico, get into the backfield, and force their wide receivers to beat us. It's the game plan that Oregon went into against Penn State, and they beat Penn State. You would think that Jim Knowles maybe would have saw that and said, like, let's just revamp that for next week because I don't know what I'm going to get out of UCLA. Instead, UCLA, they don't do that. Protect the deep ball, bend, don't break defense against UCLA, which you're playing an 0-4 team. You should not be playing bend, don't break. That's what you play when you're trying to upset somebody better than you. They run for 270 yards, 53 carries, 270 yards, 5.1 yards a carry. Nico had 128 rushing yards himself. And then he didn't need to throw the ball much. He only had 17 completions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, he was good when they needed him to make plays. He did, and he threw the ball well. But he was only 17 of 24, and he took 3 sacks. Penn State should have been forcing him to throw 35 times and take 6 sacks. And that's when you make Nico throw a lot, that's when you can maybe get a pick or two and turn the game over with the turnovers. Instead, you just let them run all over you the full game. Bad game plan altogether defensively. And then offensively, I'm with you. They look a lot. Drew Aller is a one-read quarterback. And unfortunately, I think they haven't done anything to test him. And then Nick's a point out, it's a little off topic, but I wanted to bring this up before we move forward. Nick Singleton is only averaging 3.8 yards a carry this season. They've played 3 non-Power 4 schools, 0-4 UCLA. Yeah, they played Oregon, but within 5 games, 4 of them being bad teams, he should be upwards of 5-6 yards a carry. That's a little concerning at the 3.8 mark. I don't know if that's scheme, usage, O-line issues, Singleton issues, but that's concerning. Drew Aller, I think, is a one-trick pony. If it's not a quick read or a run up the middle, he just looks lost back there. They've either got to go to a new QB or they need to figure something out of how they can make his one reads more efficient, because on 4th and 3rd, they ran that exact same option play as a jet sweep. It worked against Oregon, but you're telling me UCLA didn't watch film from the week before? It was the same situation, same scenario, same yard line. UCLA is probably thinking, oh, last week they did this. They just gave it to the wide receiver, and Allers didn't keep it. So they played the wide receiver, and it was a 4-yard loss on a 4th and 3 in a crucial moment in that game. That was for the win. Just bad coaching all around for Penn State. They just looked defeated early in that game.
Penn State had a couple of things. UCLA, you mentioned the 5.4 yards per rush they had. They were upwards of 6 until the 4th quarter when they had to start just trying to kill clock. They were taking Nico. I was reading a Penn State article this week and this morning that Nico at some point in the 3rd, multiple 3rd and longs in a row, just was able to convert it with his legs. That's unacceptable, especially when you're a Penn State defense that prides yourself on. You brought in this high-paid, high-quality national championship defensive coordinator. That cannot happen. This is for the 2nd straight game in a row. Drew Aller was not the best quarterback on the field in a game, and this time he was playing an unranked opponent. Nico, I'll give him all his flowers. He looked like the Nico we knew. I would say all year he hasn't, because UCLA's offense hasn't been able to get off the ground. Nico Iamaleava played really well, but that cannot happen. You have Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, and those guys combined for 89 yards. Nico Iamaleava alone had over 120. That cannot happen in general when you're Penn State. And then For me, if you want a couple signs that something's broken, when UCLA went to punt and take the intentional safety, just trying to kill clock at the end of the game, they were up 42-35. UCLA went to punt. You saw the punter was taught, buddy, just hold the ball, kill clock until you see Penn State defenders come at you, and then go out of the back of the end zone. Take an intentional safety. We'll kick it out. We just need time to go off the clock. No Penn State rushers. Penn State didn't have anybody rushing the punter. The UCLA punter was able to kill clock for a while. What is that coaching? What is that game planning? Once again, we said last week, like, they weren't playing to win the game. They were playing not to lose, or they were playing to make it ugly. That's not a play to win the game. That was a play to be safe and make sure you can catch a punt and return a punt. Like, no, you got to go get the damn punter who's everybody
block it.
Or block it. The
Kicking in
broadcast
their end zone.
knew.
Block it. Just block it.
There's no reason. Exactly. The UCLA, the broadcast knew. I'm pointing at my TVs if anyone knows. The broadcast was pointing it out. The fans on Twitter were pointing. Everybody other than Penn State's coaching staff knew that UCLA's punter was just going to hold the ball in the end zone. And nothing happened. And then the second part is Penn State gets the ball back. They have a chance to drive down the field and win the game. 37-42 at this time. It's like 12 or 15 seconds left. First pass, a swing pass to the side. There's no chance that is your game plan to come back in this game. Unless that is Drew Aller's first read, or Drew Aller doesn't trust himself to throw deep, there's no chance a lateral swing pass to the sideline is how you think you're going to be able to get a touchdown in 12 seconds. There's something broken about the way they're game planning. They're not trusting the offense. They don't trust Drew Aller, or they don't trust Andy Kotelnicki. They don't trust the offense in general. And they brought in good wide receivers. They have really good rushing talent. They have a solid offensive line. Something's not clicking, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And similar to you talking about the swing pass at the end of the game, which was mind-boggling, before halftime, they had the ball with about 1:30 left, midfield, 3 timeouts. You go like HB draw. I can't remember with the third. It was incomplete or another run play, short of the sticks again. And they wasted like a minute. Like, they settled for a field goal essentially from the midfield, 1:30 with 3 timeouts. They just settled for a field goal, a long field goal, against an 0-4 UCLA team where you're favored by 24 points. That's the perfect opportunity to at least try to get down the field, score a touchdown, and if it's not going to be a touchdown in a game you're losing, then at least give your kicker an easier field goal. Instead, you just waste the clock, waste the time, waste the advantage that you were just given to then try a long field goal and then go back out and then go into halftime and come back out still down multiple scores. Just like, I'm with you. It's mind-boggling play calling. It's interesting coaching. I don't know if it's a trust issue. I don't know if it's a buy-in issue. I don't know if it's a genuine can't scheme issue. There's something like wildly going wrong behind the scenes that we obviously don't know as people who don't get to sit in the locker room. But it's one of those 3 things, if not all of them. But it is just mind-boggling to watch. And that punt, I wanted to go back to that punt conversation because I'll talk a little X's and O's here. Also, in that same yesterday in the slate at the early games, Iowa State had to go block a punt from Cincinnati at the end of the game. Similar scenario. And Iowa State did the opposite of Penn State, where they rushed all 11. Now, the only issue with rushing all 11 is if they do get the punt off, they can just let it roll forever and, until eventually it comes to a stop. So you do waste a lot of clock that way. So they sent 11. Cincinnati gets the punt off. Now, in theory, that would be really good for Cincinnati. Cincinnati had a gunner who just dumb play and smacked the ball out of bounds the second he got to it. And he got chewed. If you watch the replay, he got chewed out the second he did it.
Yeah.
Coach just in his face screaming at him. We need to, if you are a football coach, you need to listen to this. If you need a punt block at the end of a game because the time's running out and this is your best chance, rush 10 and have one guy back to fair catch it. It's not that complicated. Rush 10, one guy back to fair catch it. And if you truly are like, there's 5 seconds left, then yes, rush 11. But like in the Iowa State case, there was like 35 seconds. So like those 7-8 seconds that football could have rolled are valuable. In the Penn State scenario, there was, what was like 20 something seconds. Those seconds are valuable. Rush 10. If that way the kicker doesn't have enough time, the punter doesn't have enough time to run around and dance. If you're rushing 10, it's enough people to rush to where he's gonna freak out, he's gonna panic. You have a chance that he's gonna fumble the snap. Sorry, Michigan fans, don't mean to bring up dark memories for you, but like that's where they fumble the snap, that's where they drop it, that's where you can block it. But then you also have one guy back just in case there's it's a good punt, fair catch it, or if they send 10 guys back to try to block, you have some room to run. Rush 10, one guy back. That's the solution, unless there's like under 5 seconds and you like actually just need the punt block. Then you send 11. Penn State, take notes. Iowa State, take notes. If you're a coach, take notes. 10, 1.
It's funny because you say that, or we talk about X's and O's, or we talk about, I saw a tweet from Landon Tangwall, we've discovered a couple weeks ago, does a really good job breaking down Penn State and a lot of the Big Ten. And he was basically saying, goodbye, sweet prince. Hope the NFL takes good care of you, to Katron Allen. So I'm sorry we failed you. And it reminded me of a take I heard years ago from, it might have been Colin Cowherd, but it was basically saying like NFL coaches and scouts used to tell him like they hated they didn't hate it. They would prefer taking a draft pick from a Mark Richt Georgia team over a Nick Saban Alabama team, because Mark Richt got equally talented players, but he didn't get everything out of them. So when they got to the NFL, they could grow more. When a Nick Saban player made it to the NFL, that was likely their ceiling at that point. A lot of these players on this Penn State team are about to go off to the NFL. In a couple of years, we're going to look at them and be like, how did that Penn State team win more games? Katron Allen? Nicholas Singleton? You mentioned the 3-point-something yards per carry for Nicholas Singleton. I can't imagine he's washed as a senior in college. I would imagine no, he's an elite back, and he's just not performing well this year. There's some of these guys that are like that. I would be remiss. We're 20 minutes into this conversation. One, I want to give Nico, the UCLA interim coach, Tim Skipper, and their brand new offensive coordinator, Jerry Neuheisel. They fired Tino Sinceri on like Wednesday, and Jerry Neuheisel apparently has been through the Chip Kelly administration era at UCLA, or even before that he's been asking to call plays at UCLA. He finally gets his shot, and they upset a top 10 team. So I got to give him all the flowers in the world. They ran it down Penn State's throat. Nico looked like a real quarterback. I don't know if it's repeatable because now your tape's out there, but for that one game and one game alone, you got to give them all the credit, all the love in the world, and all the flowers. I do want to, however, have a James Franklin conversation. $50 million is the buyout. I saw it last week, Jace, after we released our show, and I went back and saw what other podcasts were talking about the Penn State Oregon game. And Josh Pay had a really good take on it. He said he doesn't know what timeline, what era that game begins, but he's 99% sure the Oregon Penn State game started a new timeline at Penn State. It was either we'll look back on it in 5 years and we're going to be like, that was the beginning of the end for James Franklin, or we'll look back on it in 5 years and we would say that was when James Franklin said, screw the way I've been doing it. I'm about to like change a lot of the areas that I know we're not performing the best in, or change some of the areas that I know I'm not great as a coach in, and really take the next step as a program. I say that to say, and I bring that conversation up to say, it feels like that timeline might be more, we'll look back in 5 years, and that was the beginning of the end. And I'm not trying to sound doom and gloom, but James Franklin, even though he's not going to get fired this year, he's a $50 million buyout. Penn State has a lot of money, but there's a lot, they have to lose a lot more games for that money to be deemed as worth it. They signed him into a massive 10-year deal in 2021. His deal runs through December 31st, 2031. So get the thoughts of him being fired out of the picture. But at some point, Penn State fans are going to be apathetic. They're going to get so frustrated at every season. like you said last week, it's the hope that kills you. At some point, the hope's not going to be there because you're just going to know we're going to go beat the teams we should and then lose to Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, UCLA, and it's gonna be all for naught. Let's have that. James Franklin, where are we now with him? 1 week later.
Yeah, I'm with you. You can't fire him. 50 million buyouts, just way too much. His contract's through 2031. I don't think he's gonna make it that far unless you make some serious changes. I think if you're James Franklin, your only hope at this point is the full 180, scratch everything, start fresh, new offense, new defense. Hell, I don't blame him if he goes to a new QB after Al or after this. So you got to do something because, like you said, the worst thing you can do is lose your fan base, get your fan base to become apathetic, get your donors, your NIL funders to be apathetic of your program. And if it's very clear, it's been clear, and it's even more clear now. If James Franklin continues to go the James Franklin route, they're going to lose more big games. They might start losing games that they shouldn't. Look at the UCLA game. That's what's going to cause apathetic donors, apathetic fans. And that's when as a program, not just James Franklin, but as a program that's Penn State football, that's when you really start to fall off a cliff. That's when you lose funding. That's when you lose recruits. You lose your current talent. That's when you go into like, oh, we actually have to figure out like how to rebuild now. You can't get that far. If you're James Franklin, you need a 180 to save that. If you're the AD, you tell James Franklin, hey man, it's got to be a 180 flip, or we're gonna have to figure something out. My fiance, I don't know if this was an original idea or a Twitter idea of hers, but she had a great point yesterday. Instead of doing would you like to round up on your beer purchase at the stadium to support the Ronald McDonald Fund? Do you want to round up to support buying out our coach so we can get him out of here? That's what they need to start doing. She made that great point. That might be the Penn State solution to get James Franklin off this 50 mil buyout.
Dude, there would be donors with checks for that. Fans would have checks lined up for that.
Yeah. So it was actually a genius strategy. I'll give her credit for now. I don't know where that was hers or not, but it's kind of smart because they are. I'm afraid James Franklin has to change if they're going to be fine post James Franklin era, because this feels like the Josh Pate beginning of the end. And I think he was thinking, rightfully so, that's a 5-year down the line, figure it out. I don't think he realized that that 5 years might have been 1 week, because now we're really talking, hey, you're 3-2 and you just lost to 0-4 UCLA. Now you're really and they don't have an easy schedule. They still play Ohio State, they still play Indiana, and they still play some other formidable Big Ten teams. Certainly Big Ten teams that are better than UCLA. Something's got to change quickly for him in that program.
I just think it alludes back to what I was saying earlier, and you were saying it too. Something's broken in the program, and it's not. It could be a quick fix. It might be. I just think your offense, your quarterback doesn't trust himself right now. Your quarterback's tight. Your offensive coordinator doesn't trust your quarterback. Your quarterback doesn't seem like he trusts the offensive coordinator's play calls. You paid a ton of money for a brand new defensive coordinator, stealing him from your Big Ten rival. I just saw a video of Ryan Day on the field pregame warm-ups for Ohio State, Minnesota, watching the end of the UCLA Penn State game because Ohio State put it on their scoreboard. There's a lot that's right about Penn State. The investment they make into their program, the atmosphere that their fans bring, the players that they can bring in. There's a lot that a million programs out there beg for. Like, there's so many programs out there that are like, if I could have that infrastructure, let me bring in the right people. And I'm not saying the wrong people are in Penn State, but the current people need to make some adjustments. If they're gonna still be there. Major adjustments. I mean, for what it's worth, Andy Kotelnicki last year chose to come back to Penn State. Maybe he didn't get the West Virginia job, but he interviewed for it, and he interviewed for some head coaching jobs. He chose to come back to Penn State for a year or two. How's that looking right now? Unfortunately. There's some of these. Jim Knowles won a national championship last year, and now people are saying, see, they only won the Natty because Ryan Day took the defense away from Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles had to call someone else's defense. I don't know how much of that is true because Jim Knowles has been a really good defensive coordinator since before Ohio State, but there's something broken in the Penn State system. So with James Franklin, it's on him to fix it. You can't fire the guy. The buyout's too expensive. He's too invested in the program. They're too invested in him. You got to find a way to, whatever wires are crossed, whatever's not lined up, you got to line them up. You got to find a way to straighten things out a little bit there, because I'll tell you this, I don't feel bad for Northwestern, because I feel like Penn State's going to go try to destroy Northwestern now, just to show that they can they have a pulse.
Yeah.
But then again, the week after you got Iowa. I'm a little scared about that if I was Penn State, because one thing that Penn State has shown is their excuses, the fan base and team's excuses going into the Oregon game was, yeah, our offense hasn't played extremely well against FIU, Nevada, and Villanova because we haven't had to open up the offense. It's been vanilla. Maybe that was your offense. And maybe that was like the troubles that you had then was your offense. And you just had a couple more troubles today against UCLA and a couple more against Oregon. And as you play better teams too, you're going to have more and more offensive troubles. I feel like Penn State fans are sick watching Bo Prabula spin it for Mizzou because they chose Drew Aller over Bo Prabula. It's a lot wrong right now in Happy Valley, but I think the solution is probably easier to find at a place like that has everything going for it. It feels like some things are broken within it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. Like if your issue was like, we don't have the buy-in from boosters or we don't have the buy-in from the athletic department, that's a whole different, bucket to open into and a much tougher
like
ironically to make.
Ironically, you'd rather be Penn State still now, despite the loss, over UCLA. UCLA has a lot more structural issues, like you mentioned,
and those are a lot harder to come back on than it is just like, hey, maybe something on the field or it's a scheme thing. And the reason for the doom and gloom, and I know we don't always take losses like doom and gloom. Like obviously, when you're a fan, it's different. But the reason why this is so doom and gloom, and I think that's objectively the case for them, this was supposed to be hey, we got everybody back. We're bringing back all our seniors. This is our year. This was supposed to the final Jim Harbaugh Michigan year where they did this and they won the national championship. That was like what James Franklin was trying to do this year with the seniors buying in. And now you're not out of the playoff, I don't think, at 3-2, but you've used up all of you've used up all of your freebies and gimmies. You got to go perfect here. If you lose to both Indiana and Ohio State, you're done. If you lose to one of them and you beat the other one, you're banking on carrying that one win. You're banking on somebody else tripping up for you to make it. And if you win them both, then sure, you're back. But you got to be perfect here on out. And this was the circled, like, we're getting everybody back. We're doing everything right. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover after this season. Not just like, I'm not just saying because they're portal, but like guys that have to leave, guys that stayed too long. This is their final year. And these are like most of your playmakers, most of your star players. When Oregon went to play Penn State and everybody was like, well, have you heard of this guy and this guy and this guy? They're all going to be first rounders. Those guys are all gone. Everybody you banked on to beat Oregon, to beat UCLA are going to be gone next year. So the doom and gloom comes in. This was your calendar window, circled national championship season. That's falling short of expectations. You don't want to enter a rebuild. I call it that because they have so much talent that it's not going to feel like a true rebuild. But you don't want to enter a little bit of a rebuild with no momentum, with questions on your coach, questions on your schemes, questions on your highest paid defensive coordinator and your $50 million buyout 2031 contract head coach. It makes it difficult for recruits to want to commit to you because they're uncertain about your future. It makes it difficult for your young talents to stay. They've seen what it's like in the locker room when things were bad, and they know I could go here and have a better locker room, a better situation, and play for more. It puts you in a tricky spot. And luckily for Penn State, they do have the NIL, they do have the buy-in, they have the AD, they have the care to make those things work out. They need to figure out the on the field stuff first before it gets too ugly.
Yeah, before we move on, you're absolutely right. If you're Penn State, your margin error is gone. You can't lose to Indiana. You can't lose to Ohio State. You can't lose to Iowa. You can't lose to Northwestern. You can't lose to anybody left on your schedule. if you want to make the playoff and capitalize on this season. And if, by the way, if you do that, Jason and I will be the first ones to come on this show and talk about what a turnaround by James Franklin, what a turnaround by Penn State. That would be truly remarkable. With that said, I mean, going back to what you said, all these guys are gone. All the seniors that they brought back are gone. That was a 6th ranked recruiting class that year with Dennis Sutton, with Nicholas Singleton, with Drew Aller. I just looked right now. They have the 16th ranked recruiting class for this year. Last year they brought in the 15th. The year before they brought in the 14th. I'm not saying that isn't good enough to compete at an elite level, but that's only good enough to make your team good. And if they're not going to go out, maybe they'll go out in the portal and grab a bunch of guys too. Maybe they have a bunch of guys that are developing that we don't know about yet. But it's the same thing we said about Clemson going into the year. If you're not capitalizing on this year, you're not recruiting at a rate that's going to make you elite next year. Oregon replaced, 18 starters this year, and they're 5-0. They're recruiting at a rate that can keep them elite. Penn State's not. Clemson's not. That's the shitty part of it. I think if you were a Penn State fan, like, not only did you put all your eggs in the basket of winning this year, but now that it's failing, what are the likelihoods of, like, in the next 5 years they'll be back? Not that they're about to go into a 6-6 spell. They're probably going to be 9-3, 10-2 still, but they're still not recruiting at a rate to, like, push them past Ohio State, push them past Oregon. And that's the disappointing part. It's just a bummer. Do you still see them making the Big Ten title game or see them as playoff contenders? Because I just don't see them. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm going to say no to both. I don't think that between at Iowa, at Ohio State, Indiana at home, at Michigan State, even Nebraska at home, I don't see them running that slate cleanly. Oregon being undefeated in the Big Ten still, Ohio State being undefeated in the Big Ten still, Indiana. I think the winner of Indiana-Oregon will probably find themselves in the Big Ten title game, and then I would imagine Ohio State will too. I think they're kind of out of the race. Like I said, I don't think they're going to run that table, and because they're not going to run that table, I also think they miss out on the college football playoff. They could prove me wrong.
I mean,
I don't think it's going to happen.
You look at the rest of their schedule, and you can't find a game in there that's worse than the team you just lost to. Yeah. So if you're telling me you're going to run through it, great. I hope you do, but it's going to be hard, and I don't think that's going to happen. All right, we've talked 2 weeks in a row in recap shows, 40 minutes on Penn State. Let's go to our picks recap. Jace, it was a good week of picks for us. Let's why don't you break us down there?
All right, I'll try to fly through this one. So Farbo and I each went 4-1 on our picks this week. We were on the same 3 teams, which I'll run through now. So we were both on Alabama and Vanderbilt at Alabama. We both even called the game script. Both of us were like, it'll be a close game going into the third, fourth quarter. Either Pavia or Simpson's going to make a mistake that's going to open this game up. We both thought it would be Pavia and Vanderbilt, and it was. Alabama kind of ran away with that one. Very personal touchdown at the end of that game we can talk about later, but solidified the cover for us. Michigan State at Nebraska. Nebraska was 11.5-point favorites. We were both on the Spartans. The Spartans were also Farbode shot in the park. So they doubled down for you. Go green, go white if you're Farbode. That was an interesting game. This is the only time we'll talk about it, so I'll give a quick thought. That was a tie game / Michigan State was leading going late into the third, fourth quarter, and it was I hate to say it, but it's becoming a classic Michigan State staple of they just fall apart in the fourth quarter. It happened against USC last week, happened again against Nebraska. Almost it took a backdoor touchdown, trash time late in the game to cover that, but they did. They're a really good 45-minute team. They are a really bad 15-minute team. They need to figure out how to play 60 minutes of football. But again, they're not a bad team. You watch them for the first 45 minutes, they look good. Anyways, that's a whole nother story, maybe a conversation for a different show. We got Miami at Florida State. Miami is 4.5-point favorites. We were both on the Hurricanes. They covered. Florida State made it close at the end, but it was 28-3 going into the fourth quarter. Miami played very well. We'll talk more about that one. And then 2 games we were different on. Kansas State at Baylor. Baylor 6.5-point favorites. I was on the Wildcats. Farbode was on the Bears. Wildcats lose by 1, but that does mean they cover. Crazy ending. That's a whole, also X's and O's ending of game conversations. Chris Kleiman kind of choked that one a little bit. Actually, I don't even know the refs. I hate saying the refs did it, but I'll say it. The refs called back that touchdown from Kansas State when he was not out of bounds. But Texas Tech at Houston. Texas Tech 11.5-point favorites. I was on Houston. Farboda was on the Red Raiders. Red Raiders. I'll talk a little bit more about them too, so I won't say much. They are the real freaking deal. They get a big win at Houston. So that brings me to 19-16 on the season. I'm finally positive here, and I'm hoping to carry that momentum. Farbode 23-12 on the season. Very impressive. I would love to see like what Fox Sports guys have, what ESPN guys have. I would put you up there in contention. These aren't alternates. These aren't like College Game Day. This week they did a lot of spreads because they were so big, but at College Game Day pickers are worse than you, and they do just straight up. So they'll take like 7-point favorites and they'll pick them to win, and you're beating them and you're doing the spreads. So very impressive work there. As I mentioned, Farbode shot in the park. Michigan State Spartans, a plus 11.5. They covered, did not get the outright win, but you're up to 4 points now. Looking upright. I had Purdue plus 9.5 versus Illinois. 2 fumbles in that game really hurt Purdue. They were looking good if it weren't for that muff punt when they were down 1 score. I'm still stuck at 5 points, no cover there. So now we're pretty tight in that race. 5 points, 4 points. And then the parlay this week struggled. Only 1 for 4 on legs. That was our worst parlay of the season. Duke and Cal hit in the nightcap game over. That anytime you have a night game between like 2 kind of random programs, it's going to hit the over. Iowa State plus 1.5 at Cincy, just couldn't get it done there. Pavia anytime touchdown. Also, he had a lot of rushing yards, just couldn't punch one in. Kentucky plus 20.5. They lost by 21. That was tough at Georgia there. So tough parlay for us this week. We'll bounce back. We'll be better next week. I can promise that. We'll do a little bit more locked in research next week, and we'll get you guys a win.
Ironically, I feel like I still would take each of those picks. Like, I don't think either of those any of those picks on that parlay were on the wrong side. Vegas is Vegas, and there's a reason they make money.
It's a reason they're rich.
Case, with your permission, I'm going to kill the D block. I'm going to go into the C block, though.
I like it.
Let's head down to Texas, number 9 Texas. First time ever in the swamp. Loses to Florida, 29-21. They lost to a dead program. And I don't really know what else to say about Arch Manning in Texas anymore. I don't think this is a conversation. I mean, there's a conversation to have about Florida, Billy Napier, DJ Lagway. Going into this week, DJ Lagway said their offense is going to pop soon. We all laughed about that. I made a comment about it on our preview show. There's like, I'll believe it when I see it, kid. But their offense popped. That's a Texas defense that we thought was one of the best defenses in the country. And that just happened. Obviously, Dallas Wilson, phenomenal player. Really wish he was still at Oregon. But at the same time, I think the story of the game is not Florida trying to revive their season or save Billy's job, because I think that's still in hand. Is this a sign of Sark's poor coaching? Like, is Arch actually bad?
The thing with hardest part about evaluating Arch is trying to separate who he is actually as a quarterback and from the hype and the way everybody uplifted Arch as if he was going to be the messiah of college football and the next great thing and the best quarterback we've ever watched in our lives. Trying to separate the hype from who I think he's fine. I think my final take would be he's a fine quarterback in his current state, not like his potential, but his current state. For every beautiful 40-yard fade route that drops in a bucket that is like, oh man, yeah, this kid can spin it, he's going to overthrow a slant that's going to get picked. He's going to get happy feet in the pocket and waste a good pocket and then try to scramble because his first read wasn't open. And he's going to take an unnecessary hit and run for 2 yards. For every beautiful comeback route 15 yards down the sideline he's going to throw, he's going to hospital ball his tight end that's going to get picked because it's going to be tipped straight up in the air. Or he's going to overthrow a wide open wheel route for no reason at all. He makes plays where you're like, as a fan, it would just kill you that you would think any competent quarterback should make that throw. Like literally just like a wide open slant, he'll overthrow it, throw it behind him. But then he just makes these great plays with his legs or with his arm downfield. And you're like, okay, I see the seal. I see this kid's potential. I think, unfortunately for Arch, he had the hype of being the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, and he's just one of the most average quarterbacks that I've seen. I do think Sark has some blame here, development wise, one, but maybe even more importantly, rushing. I think because of the hype Arch got, I think Sark felt the pressure of I need to rush. I need like he's going to be he has to be our guy. Like he's so high in Heisman ballots. Like people are talking so highly of him. He has to be our guy. And I think he just went into the year locked in on Arch as QB1 and didn't do the due diligence of actually measuring, is he ready to be quarterback one at Texas for, like we said, a defense that should be one of the best defenses in the country. Did he need to look in the portal? Did they need to maybe recruit quarterbacks a little bit better? Was Arch ready for the moment?
They told Quinn Ewers to go.
Yeah, he kicked him out.
They
And I think
they didn't kick. Yeah, they told Quinn Ewers to go.
Yeah, and I think if you're Sark, he should have probably taken the route. Like in a perfect world, it's easy to say in hindsight, and maybe he tried to do this, but you evaluate Arch Manning. Maybe you come to the conclusion, I don't think he's quite ready to be our quarterback one. Not to say he couldn't ever be the quarterback one or he's not going to be great down the line, but I don't think he was ready for QB1 this year. I think you're the head coach of Texas football. You need to be the one to tell the media to slow down. You need to be the one to tell the media where he actually stands. You need to be and you don't have to do it by slandering the kid and say, oh yeah, he's just not ready. There's good ways to go in and say, like, we need to tamper expectations, or, we're still trying to evaluate what's best for our program. There's ways you can do that. You are the head coach of Texas football. So I think there's some blame there. But I think my overall take is Arch is a fine quarterback. He's got a high ceiling, but he also has a pretty bad floor. He had 2 brutal picks. He was 16 of 29 in this game passing. That 55%-ish, if my math is correct. That's not great. A lot of them were like 3rd and 7. He had a guy wide open on a slant, and he just threw it behind him. 3rd and 3, he had a running back wide open in the flat, and he overthrows. He has Jack Andrews wide open down the sideline. It's just thrown out of bounds 5 yards over his head. There's mechanical issues that Arch has that causes these easy throws to become misses. But there's also some gamer in him where, hey, Arch, we need you to throw this beautiful fade route to Ryan Wingo over his back shoulder on a 45-yard go route out of the slot. Oh, yeah, easy. And it's a dot. And it's like, okay, like he's got that ceiling, but his floor is also pretty abysmal for a team that's trying to win a national championship this year that went all in on this kid being elite. He's fine, but he makes bad throws.
I agree. I'm still not ready to say he's a bum. I think he's clearly talented. But if you're asking me, is he a good quarterback today? Would I want him? Is he going to be a national championship trophy raiser at the end of the season? I would say no. And that's the tough part when you're talking about a kid like this who, like, he hasn't done anything wrong, but it's also because of his family, because of the hype on him specifically. It's a cautionary tale for a lot of coaches out there of don't get involved with the celebrity college quarterback because your quarterback's already going to become a celebrity. Don't get involved with a celebrity high school quarterback because not only are they going to overshadow the guy that they're backing up for the first few years of their career, everyone's going to be asking you about that. And when it's time for him to start, even if you don't think it's ready, there's so many politics involved there that you have to start him. For me, if this guy was Arch Johnson, not Arch Manning, and he was coming into this year as Texas's starter, and Sark pushed away Quinn Ewers in January after they lost in the playoffs. Sark didn't go after another quarterback. Basically, the thought process Sark, would have had was, yeah, Arch Johnson is going to be our quarterback for this year. QB1, I'm setting it in stone in January. And then that guy goes out and plays the way Arch is. You know what you and I would be saying is, I texted it to you yesterday. You're not taking care of your coaching duties. If you're not, it's just coaching malfeasance by Sark. If you're not going to go and knock down every domino, knock down every door, trying to make sure your quarterback situation is set. I find it hard to believe that Arch is a bad quarterback because Sark has been experienced enough and he's smart enough to know that he's at a program that can't have these down spells anymore after building him back up. He's veteran enough coach and head coach to know, hey, if I don't think Arch is ready, I need to go to the portal and grab a super senior quarterback. I need to go see if John Mateer wants to come to Texas. I need to go see if I can pull Bo Pribula from Penn State instead of going to Mizzou. Why not come to Texas? I need to go see if maybe even like Sam Levitt. Hey, I know you like ASU. How about Texas? Like, I need to go see if I can pull someone in because my team is ready. And the only part of my team that I don't fully believe in is the quarterback. Sark truly looked at his quarterback, knew that Arch wasn't ready, and didn't go out and get a quarterback. That is completely on Sark. Now, if it's something that like some sort of mechanics that Arch decided to change September 2nd or August 5th, then there's some things that Sark can't fix. He has to deal with whatever Arch did mechanically, or he got hurt or whatever. And this could be a case of a new quarterback struggling because you and I talked about it. Arch didn't have the highly talented high school opponents to really go up against, but he's been going up against the Texas defense the last 3 years as well. So I think it's on them. I think we switch to Florida real quick, running a little low on time.
Yeah. So, we'll go quick on Florida here. I don't know if this win is as good for them and their future as it might feel. Like, celebrate the win. Absolutely. You beat Texas at home, and it's nice to see your team win a big game. Celebrate Dallas Wilson. I want to shout us out when we said if Florida's going to be good this year, it's going to have to be with Dallas Wilson stepping up, being your best player. Florida fans love to laugh at that. What are you talking about, guys? Not even going to start for us. He's your best, like we said, he is your best playmaker, and you are only going to win big games in the SEC if your big game playmakers making big plays, and now you're finally using him. Shout out that. But in the grand scheme of things, this is the Billy Napier that we've seen every single year. He needs 4 or 5 games to get hot, to get going. And the problem is, it's not the NFL. You can't have 4 or 5 games like the preseason and then 1 or 2 games to get going. This is college football. You play week 1 is week 1. There's no preseason. So sure, maybe this resurrects Florida to a 6-6 season. Do you want that again? Do you want a 6-6 season where you take a coach who's keeps leading you astray in the first 5 weeks? Do you want him again next year and the year after? Part of me, if I was a Florida fan, would be excited to beat Texas, happy about the win, but I'd also be scared of, does this make me buy into Billy Napier? Is this going to make the program buy back into Billy Napier? Do I really want to do this dance again next year with Billy Napier? Their defense looked really good. Take it on.
Defense has never been broken at Florida this year. Their defense has played well. It's the offense that was broken. DJ Lagway told us it was going to pop, and it did yesterday. Yeah, you asked the better question. We talked about it at the beginning of the preview show that there were some Florida fans on message boards saying, I hope Texas blows us out by 50, so Florida's administration has no choice. Now you're opening the door back up for what happened last year. If Billy and Florida get hot a little bit, you can't really fire them. And then what are you going to do if they somehow get through another tough schedule and you still haven't fired the guy? And now you're back to square one because we keep talking about it. It doesn't matter that they showed fight and grit at the end of last season because they won the last 3 games against top 10 opponents and DJ Lagway looked like a star. So you're like, let's bring Billy back. That's not the point. The point isn't to go 8-5. The point is to build a culture and a program that's ready to compete with the best of them week in, week out. And if you're constantly saying, oh, well, he won this game, I bet he can win, and he's our guy. It's like if Florida's administration is so prisoner of the moment in game by game, then there's a massive problem at Florida, and it's not just with Billy Napier. You're absolutely right. If you're a Florida fan, I'm reading their message boards right now. Most of them are saying this was the worst case scenario. Billy's now taking victory laps. Florida fans are pissed because, like, yeah, you want your team to win, but you technically just beat a top 10 team, giving Scott Strickland and the administration some reason to hold on to you for a little bit more. So it's a fascinating question. I think it was a great game by DJ. Got to give him flowers. Great game by Florida's offense and Dallas Wilson. But that was a game that Texas should have won, needed to win, and that was a game that Florida fans would have wanted Florida to lose.
Yeah, Texas is a very interesting story too. You've lost to at Ohio State. Your offense looked terrible in that game. Your defense looked really good in that game. You lose at Florida. Your offense, you had 50 rushing yards, and you only, other than Arch Manning, I think you had less than 10 carries for running backs and for under 15 yards. That's inexcusable. Your 3 wins are San Jose State, where you only won 38-7, didn't cover. UTEP, 27-10, didn't cover. And then Sam Houston, he blowed out, but Sam Houston is like 1-4, and they're terrible themselves. You have no signature wins. You have no impressive wins. You have 2 losses. Yeah, they're against good enough teams, but still, I think like if you want to have a resume to make the college football playoff, you got to have something to circle. You're 3-2. Now you play the Red River rivalry / thank you, Florida, for giving Eugene college game day. It definitely would have been this game if Texas didn't lose. But you play Oklahoma at home. You have Vandy at home, Arkansas at home, and Texas A&M at home. And you play at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, and at Georgia. You're 0-1 in the conference. Where does Florida stand? Same thing as Penn State. Where do they stand in the SEC championship race? How do you see that playing out? And what's their path to the playoff?
I mean, Georgia has a loss. Vanderbilt now has a loss. Alabama's undefeated in the SEC. Oklahoma's undefeated.
Texas A&M
Obviously,
is
if you're Texas, Texas A&M's undefeated. If you're Texas, you have something to say next week against Oklahoma if you want Oklahoma to not be undefeated. It'll probably help with the John Mateers out next week. You have Arch, but you have to hope that you can put up a better offensive performance than you did this week. It's your big rivalry game. You got to go win that game, especially when Oklahoma doesn't have their quarterback. Kentucky, you better win that game. I know Kentucky has a habit of making things weird on favorites, but you got to go win that game. But like Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Georgia, Texas A&M, those are tough games. There's a chance that Texas ends up with 3 or 4 losses, maybe 5. If their offense is as streaky as we've seen it to be, and they go up against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt put up a good fight against Alabama. They lost at the end with a couple of red zone turnovers, but they were what I just said, red zone turnovers. They got to the red zone. A couple less mistakes from Diego Pavia. That game could have been completely different. So, like, you go up against Vanderbilt at home, Georgia on the road, and A&M at home. You're lucky that you have 2 of those games at home. It's going to be tough, man. I think Texas still can make it, and they can still make the SEC title game. But there's so many undefeated teams that still it has to bear out for the rest of the year of teams. Once teams start beating each other, we'll have a better idea. But right now, Texas doesn't have the best shot, in my opinion. Just because I'm not saying like with the one loss that they don't have the best shot, but I'm just saying, seeing how I know their offense is playing, combined with the one loss, is the potential for them to make it, for me, is lower.
I agree. Not that their hopes are done to win the SEC, but I think you kind of shift focus from winning the SEC to winning game by game, because you've hit the point now where you kind of have to be perfect and you need some teams above you to lose. So I think you're better off at this point. Just, hey, let's one game at a time. If it works out for us, it does. Because I think you got to shift your focus now to making the playoff as a 2-loss team with 0 impressive wins. You're going to need to stack you have 4 ranked teams, at least currently ranked teams in your schedule. I think you need to win 3 of those. That will give you one that makes you a 9-3 contender, best case scenario, and gives you 3 quality wins. That's going to be how you make the playoff. But if you lose 2 of those, if you're 8-4, I think you're toast. Or, if you win all 4, obviously that even might allow you to slip up against at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, who I don't think are slouches at all, and you don't want to overlook them. But if you 9-3 and that ends up being a loss, but you beat Oklahoma, Vandy, Georgia, and Texas A&M, I think you have an argument to make it back in. Not a lot of room for error if you're Texas, though. I think you just start focusing one game at a time, let the rest of the season take care of itself.
I still see, I don't think all hope's done, though, with them. I'm sadly very doom and gloom on them. This isn't like a Penn State thing where they lost their second game in the conference to a nobody. Florida, while they have their troubles, and we've made fun of them all year, they have a really good defense, and they had an offense that just wasn't doing anything, but had playmakers. So it's not doom or gloom of Texas is bums, but Texas needs to figure some things out offensively to make that team run again. Let's get to buy or sell. Jace, I'm going to hand the ball off to you.
All right, we got 5 buy or sells this week. So last week it was takes I had seen, or earlier in the week it was takes I saw on Twitter, I heard in sports media. These are my takes that I have been putting together watching games throughout the year, throughout this past week. My takes that I'm going to give to Farbode, buy or sell. We'll go through them pretty quickly here. First one, Farbode, buy or sell. Miami will be playing in the national championship game this year.
Buy. I don't care what your order is. Right now, the best 3 teams in the country are Ohio State, Miami, and Oregon. They have controlled every game they played in. They have beaten all the teams that they need to, obviously, but they have looked great offensively, defensively, special teams in every game that they played in. And that's my differing factor, because there are a lot of good teams out there that, like, you could say, oh, their offense needs a little bit more. Oh, their defense could use one more linebacker, a better linebacker here. They're complete on both sides, and that defensive improvement from last year is real. I'll buy that.
Yep, I like that. I think when your weaknesses, when you have to get nitpicky to find teams' flaws, that's a sign of how good they are. They're one of the best offensive lines in the country, one of the best defensive lines in the country. That's a recipe for success. I'm with you. Obviously, that's my take. All right, jump into the next one here. Farbode, buy or sell. There is a difference between ACC good and Big Ten SEC good. Think of Virginia and then like the Tennessees or Illinois.
I'll buy that. I think this is a great off-season conversation. Because if you want to, like, we'll do this in the off-season. We should write this down, but stack up the top 10 teams in the ACC, stack up the top 10 teams in the Big Ten, stack up the top 10 teams in the SEC. I would argue the first 2 or 3 in each team, in each league, can compete with each other. After that, I think you start getting to a point in the ACC that's like, oh, that might be a 9.5 point underdog against the SEC's 9th team. Like, you're telling me the ACC's 5th best team is a 8-point dog to the Big Ten's 7th team? Like, I'm not saying the Big Ten's extremely deep. The SEC's deeper, but in general, the ACC good. Like, UVA, all due respect to Tony Elliott and the guys, they would get destroyed by some of the bigger Big Ten schools or SEC schools if they played them. If they played at the time, FSU, whatever the equivalent of FSU is, if they played Indiana, I would take Indiana every day.
Yeah. I was watching that game, the Virginia Louisville game. I was like, Virginia looks good. But then after that, I turned into some SEC ball and I was like, oh, okay, it's just there's levels to football here. Still, no knock. Virginia looks cool. They're fun to watch. That was a great game too. All right, Farbode, buy or sell. The Big 12 is the most fun conference to watch when you don't have a team in the conference.
It's either I'll buy that as well. It's either the most fun or the most frustrating conference to watch, because we're trying to make picks on the Big 12 games on teams that we've liked going into this year. We like Iowa State. We loved Kansas State going into the year. We started liking Baylor a lot. One week they look like the best team in the country. The next week they look like they can lose to Louisiana Monroe. It's a lot of fun because it's like just true football. Crazy random things happen. That's one of the most fun parts of the Big 12 is there's not as much of a discrepancy after Texas and Oklahoma left of where these guys are recruiting, right? Everyone's within the same range in the country. Everyone's recruiting this geographically the same area. The people, like, it's not like the Big Ten where Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State are in the top 15 or recruiting in the top 5. And then the rest of the Big Ten's in like the 57th in the country in recruiting. Everyone in the Big 12 is like 40 to 60. So, I mean, other than Texas Tech because of the money they brought in. So that's the fun part is like everyone's like similarly rated. It's like if the NFL had an equivalent college football conference because talent's so equivalent, it would be the Big 12.
Yeah, anybody can beat anybody on any given game. It's a fun. Yesterday I watched multiple Big 12 games and was loving all of it. It's just fun football. It's points. It's crazy offenses, passing attacks. It's fun to watch. But I was like, if you had a team in this conference, it'd be so frustrating. If when your team loses games, it shouldn't, and stuff like that. All right, Farbode, fourth one here. Buy or sell? Texas Tech is a true national title contender.
Yeah, buy. They can I buy an can I what's the middle? I'll hold this or whatever. The
You can wait, see if it goes on sale.
I think I would buy it, but the thing is that you still stack him up against Ohio State. I don't know who you got. Texas Tech looks legit. Texas Tech looks damn good. I just think the Texas Tech national title contender that Cody Campbell, that and Joey McGuire trying to build using the oil money and everything, that's like 2 years down the road probably. But this year's team is a very good test of how, if you put a lot of money into the hands of the right coaches and evaluators to go out into the transfer portal and assemble a team, how good of a team can you build? And they built a damn good team, because we've seen, like, there are a lot of programs out there who who complain about money, but they have a lot of NIL funding. They just put it in the wrong guy. Josh Payson in Nebraska gave a left tackle $1 million this offseason. He hasn't seen the field yet. So it's like putting it into the right guys, and putting in the right guys matters. And that's what Texas Tech did. And they look formidable. They could be a national title.
They remind me of 13-0, like Jordan Travis Florida State team, where they just hit on a bunch of portal players and everything went well. Now, unfortunately, they had the big injury, and then they played Georgia and just got ran out of a gym. They got absolutely smoked. I'm curious if Texas Tech is like that, and if we just see like if when you build a team like that, usually you lack depth. And unfortunately, in college football, injuries are a part of it. And when that lack of depth has to come out and play at Georgia, you feel it. And I'm curious if Texas Tech is like that, where they might need everything to go right for them to make this happen. But so far, they just look, they're like the only team in the Big 12 that looks dominant each week. Everyone else has like shown flashes of good or bad. They're the only ones that have only been good. So that I was just curious your take there. All right, final one, Farbode. Buy or sell? This is a take I've had. Shout out to Sean. We've talked a lot about this. There should be no rankings until every single team in the country has played 6 games.
Are we talking about AP rankings or just normal rankings?
AP, like rankings that we take as truth. Like people like you and me, give me your rankings all season long. That's fun. But I don't like that we have like AP pull truth rankings.
So I'll buy that, but at the same time, we're in the content space. That's the entire point of the AP poll. It's to get people like us riled up. It's not like, to be honest with you, I don't think, like, I'm so split on this because the poll is stupid. Like, you and I have talked about it plenty of times. The AP poll is dumb, and the voters a lot of times, like, will put their beat writers of a hometown team, so they'll put their team ranked higher or whatever. And so the overall voting might look a little skewed or a little weird. Or some team might not have all the first place votes for number one because their rival beat writer didn't want to vote them number one, So like the AP poll is stupid. Like, I agree with the fact that like it would be less infuriating if it wasn't part of our lives. But as a content creator now, and as someone who, like, the company I work for, it's just content. Like, you just put it out there. People react to it. You can talk about it. I think in general, rankings themselves should not exist until every team has played 6 games. Like, there's a reason the college football playoff rankings don't come out till week 9, until we know where teams are stacked up and how teams actually play, where injuries are. I don't know if I'm making any sense here. I'm saying I think you're right that the AP poll itself is stupid and shouldn't exist. Polls themselves shouldn't exist, but I see the value of them as a content space, and since we're a part of that, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with them if like content people like us that just do podcasts and some social media stuff want to give their own rankings. I think that's fun discourse. That's content. As a fan, it's enjoyable. Where the AP poll part comes in for me, we start the year off with these arbitrary rankings just based on what beat writers think is going to happen. And over the weeks, people have like shown how little beat writers actually know by going through their polls and showing the discrepancies and stuff. The issue I have with is at the end of the season, they're always going to, like, you know, when we're making real decisions on like how the future of these teams are going to play out with the college football playoff and not, they go back and say, well, Oregon got that big top 10 win against Penn State. Okay, what if Penn State finishes 8-4 and we find out they're okay? You know, like, sure, that's great for Oregon. You have a top 10 win and people are going to cite that, but like, was it really a top 10 win? That's a big question. And on the flip
Or
side,
the
like
LSU win over Clemson in week 1. Like, is Clemson really number 3 in the country?
I can guarantee you, especially because LSU is the SEC. End of the season, when they're talking about resumes and LSU's on the fringe, they're going to cite LSU won this. They have 2 top 10 wins, and you go look at it like, really, who's the second one? They're giving Clemson the top 10 win to LSU when we all know that's not the case. And on the flip side, like, you're going to have a team like Arizona State, right? They're going to have a bad loss, losing at Mississippi State. End of the season, Mississippi State might actually be a pretty good team, as we're finding out. And unfortunately, like, they're going to use that to knock Arizona State when in reality, hey, that's actually a pretty good team. There's going to be teams that win games. Who did TCU just beat a couple weeks, or just lose to a couple weeks ago? Whoever TCU just lost to a couple weeks ago. TCU could finish the year ranked and finish at 18. Baylor, right? Is it Baylor? Baylor beat the Frogs.
I'm drawing a blank. Why don't we just look this up? This is bad podcasting.
Yeah, this is bad podcasting. Arizona State beat TCU. Yes. Like, TCU was ranked 24th at that time. Let's say TCU, they have a winnable schedule with a couple ranked teams. Let's say TCU finishes the year 10-2 and is ranked 12th in the country. Arizona State's not going to get the credit they deserve for beating TCU because the AP poll said that TCU wasn't great at the time, when in reality they were a really good team and Arizona State made a nice comeback to beat them. That's the part where, like, the AP poll just, it's not very good. It's always objectively bad rankings. It's more for content than it is for objection of who's the best team. And it's always used in favor. It's the way the committee uses the AP poll to lift up these SEC teams, these Big Ten teams, to say, hey, look at all these ranked wins that they had. And then they won't use that same, they'll say, oh, Arizona State, they beat number 25 TCU. Right. It's not that big of a deal. No, it is, because now they're 12. You know, that they're going to use it to manipulate these teams, and I hate that. I hate when teams, like, I'll be honest, I think Penn State, if we didn't rank teams until week 7, Penn State would not be ranked. They have not beaten a Power 4 team yet. They've lost their 2 Power 4 games. But it's going to look like a great win. Yeah, Texas hasn't either. Both those teams are still going to be ranked in the top 15 because that's how the AP polls work. When I don't think either of those teams are top 25 teams in the country right now. Just, they haven't proven it to me yet.
They shouldn't be ranked.
That's my anti-AP poll take.
I completely agree with you on everything you said. I think the AP poll itself, like you said, plenty of reasons that it should not exist, but it does. I don't know like how it'll better to put it than the way you do. The way you put it is perfect. And there's like some teams that get brought up because of it, some teams that get shot down because of it. In the long run, though, I think the concept of not ranking teams until 6 games is important. I think the AP poll, that anyone who wants to act like it's going to go away, or if they fuss about it enough that they'll get rid of it, that's wrong. What's going to happen is all the companies, all the podcasts, all the platforms, all the shows are going to be tweeting out the AP poll more because they know you're going to react to it at home. So it's just a content mechanism. It's a content king. Everyone creates their own polls on shows because they're like, oh my God, our polls, the AP poll sucks. And one thing I hope that if anyone's still with us right now, 119 in, one thing I hope you've noticed is we don't have a poll for our show because we think polls are stupid up until this point of the season. We will probably come out with a ranking at some point towards the end of the year, but we had a conversation at the beginning, like, do we need to do a weekly poll? And we think it's stupid. Like, let's just see how the teams stack up week in, week out. And that's the reason we haven't done one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The unfortunate reality is money is king. The last part, unfortunate reality is money is king. The AP poll is money. It's clicks, it's views. It's engagement. It's something for people to talk about. It's money. Money will always be king, unfortunately, especially in college football these days. Doesn't matter what's logically correct, but that's just the case.
Hey, if you, the consumer, just don't react to the AP poll, don't like the tweet, don't read the story, they'll have less reason to sell it to advertisers and consumers and people, So if you don't like it, stop complaining about it and taking in all the content because it becomes content. Yeah, stop reacting. Stop becoming engagement fodder. Alrighty. On that note, as I said at the beginning of the show, anyone ever tells you a week slate looks bad, slap him in the face. Or call Jace, he'll do it for you. It's 100% of the time. Yeah, guaranteed 100% of the time satisfaction rate from Jace's.
Oh yeah, for both of us, it's satisfaction.
Yeah, I'm going off the rails a little bit. I got to get to brunch. Week 6 is done. Thank you everybody for joining us. Make sure you're following us on TikTok at Flag for Discussion, on Twitter at F4Discussion, YouTube at Flag for Discussion. Everywhere you get your podcast at Flag for Discussion. It's been such a fun week. I'm ready. I want to see the next Penn State game. I just wish they were kicking off right now. I want to watch how they come back already. And, I don't know. The College Game Day is coming to town, coming to Eugene next weekend. We're going to have a top 10 matchup there, Indiana, Oregon. We have the Red River rivalry. Wow, it's really hard to say next week as well. We have a massive week 7 to break down. Stay tuned. Stay with us. That preview show will be out this Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. As always, from myself, Fargo and Merkazi, my lovely partner, Jace Hatfield, this has been Flag for Discussion.